Only the biggest stories, only the biggest guests, and only the biggest opinions. This is AM 560, The Answer.
We always appreciate people's opinions and comments. Bruce, we got a text message on our Turnkey.Pro text line. Bruce, I think the tree through the houses was in Lincolnwood, not Saguenash.
Well, they're very close to each other.
Well, yeah, I mean, they butt up against each other. So.
But you're right. You're
Just
right.
letting you know,
because
thank you.
And remember, in one part of town, it's Crawford, and then it becoms Pulaski. And you should never mix the two. Thank you.
You
I stand
understand?
corrected.
Are you going to be okay over there?
I'm going to be fine.
Who else is going to be fine? Elizabeth Warren, she has announced that she's going to be running for president in 2020.
I'm in this fight because I understand what's happening to working families. I grew up in a paycheck-to-paycheck family, and my big chance was a commuter college that cost $50 a semester. I run for office because I'm grateful down to my toes for the opportunities that were given to me.
Down to her moccasins.
And I am determined that we will give those same opportunities, not just to some of our kids, but to all of our kids.
Oh my God.
Does she have chutzpah?
It's about the children.
I can't believe that somebody who was embarrassed that much just a couple of months ago. I mean, even the left turned on her. I mean, when the Daily Show goes against you in your book, Pow Wow Chow, and then you still have the temerity, the audacity.
Well, she dodged questions on whether her exaggerated Native American heritage claims would affect her chance to be president.
By the way,
wouldn't answer
I'm
any of
132nd Chicago Blackhawk, as you well know, and so I'm mourning over the loss yesterday at Notre Dame Stadium to the Bruins.
Oh, yes. So it was her first press conference after announcing the formation, Bruce, of an exploratory committee for a presidential run. The first of many Democrats, I'm sure, to throw their hat into the ring. Let's get the latest on that and everything else with Tim Carney, senior political columnist for the Washington Examiner. Good morning, Mr. Carney. How are you?
Good morning. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. So it wasn't a surprise that she's decided to run for president. Who do you think is going to follow on the Democratic side?
You have a handful of people that you just absolutely know are already doing this, who have already started doing visits to Iowa and New Hampshire and South Carolina. And that's Kamala Harris and Cory Booker have done multiple of those visits. Amy Klobuchar as well. She's from Minnesota, so it's easy for her to just cross the border over into Iowa. But those are the senators I think of as jumping in right away. You also have a handful of other minor candidates, former congressman or outgoing congressman, John Delaney of Maryland. You guys probably don't know him. He's in the district next door to me. He's running, and a couple others. But Warren jumping in then I think was wise. But one of the things we argue in our editorial is that I think in a lot of ways she doesn't have anything special to offer. She did 4 years ago, but now it's kind of like every other candidate can do whatever she does and do it better.
Yeah. I saw Klobuchar on Special Report right before Christmas. And just her demeanor was scary because it was good. I'm trying to remember. I think
I live in Minnesota. They love her.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
The Kavanaugh hearings.
Yes.
You had the Spartacus Act by Booker. You had the weird, dishonest sort of raving of Kamala Harris. You had all the old white guys being their sort of doddering old selves. And then you had Klobuchar, who acted like a grown-up, but not because she was pulling punches, but because she was asking pointed questions that had sort of research behind them and not going any further than what she could, what she had sort of credibility to say. So that's my view. Would you
think if you were Trump that she would be the one to fear among, I mean, for all I know, Carly Fiorina is running as a Democrat this time. There's so many of them right now. But is she the one that you'd fear?
I mean, the only thing that he should really fear is if somehow Joe Biden can become 10 years younger. That's the one that I think. I think Biden is theoretically the best, but he's already older than Reagan was in his second term, and much less, where he's going to be 2 years from now, et cetera. But no, Klobuchar definitely has let me put it this way. The liberal base is going to be excited no matter who the candidate is. What excites them is not their nominee, it's Trump. And we've seen this from the Women's March on day one all the way, everything else. The enthusiasm is there. So to go for some firebrand like a Kamala Harris or like an Elizabeth Warren or a Bernie Sanders to rile up the base is almost redundant. What they need to do is persuade kind of middle people to be like, all right, maybe I want the slightly more normal human in the White House. Klobuchar has a slightly more normal human. She's your favorite high school teacher, or she's a high school librarian that everybody loves.
That's so funny.
Yeah, no, she's very intelligent, and she
is, and she seems reasonable.
No, and if she can grab that middle there, because as you say, the Ocasio-Cortezes, whatever, if they can just quiet those people down, they're going to be on board for the female candidate, Democratic candidate.
Yeah, and so our editorial on Warren and the Examiner argues that a lot of her populism is phony. I mean, basically, she hates the banks, but that's it. Her number one policy she talks about is student debt forgiveness, basically.
Right.
Who has student debt? This is not the working class and the poor, okay?
Right.
These are the kids. They grew up in Winnetka. They went off, to a big school that costs a lot of money, and then they come back and maybe they're not making that much money because they have a liberal arts degree, and they get their debt waived. It's corporate welfare. It's welfare for the upper middle class is what that is.
Yeah, it doesn't teach self-responsibility either.
No, but it's a transfer of wealth from the average taxpayer to the people who already kind of have their life set up for them because they have a college degree in hand.
Well, it would be interesting to ask Elizabeth Warren how she feels about vaping, because that's a class struggle, right? It's the suburban women who don't want their kids to be vaping, but meantime, if we make it illegal, it's going to be at the expense of the blue collar people who are trying to quit smoking so they don't get lung cancer.
That's right. Now, my dad's probably only alive because of vaping, but no, it's certainly one of those big government things. And she's got a lot of them, and a lot of them do not help the ordinary guy and do help the big guy. She even bragged that she was working with, or the hotel industry bragged that they were working with Elizabeth Warren to try to crush Airbnb through regulations. So some, widow who wants to rent out her basement apartment is going to have the same regulations as Marriott, because Marriott wrote those regulations and handed them to Elizabeth Warren.
Oh, that's so crazy. And as somebody who runs an Airbnb, you should see the Chicago taxes that they put on you. It's crazy. Sure. So this afternoon, big meeting. President Trump has opened up his doors to congressional lawmakers on both sides to try and end this shutdown, to try and get his border wall funded. What do you expect to happen?
So he's looking for a deal, and I think the Democrats are as well. He wants to sort of hold it over Pelosi that she doesn't want to come into the speakership in a shutdown government, and so he probably gets some sort of border money there. And at the Examiner in our editorial today, we're proposing that he make a deal and he give them something on immigration, some small, some DACA idea that he signed on for, as far as forgiveness for children who came in illegally as children, and do some sort of deal like that where he's giving them some immigration policy and he's getting more funding for his wall. I expect they'll want to peter it out. The problem with these predictions, though, is that Trump sways back and forth from minute to minute. He was for a shutdown, he was against a shutdown, and now he's for it. He wanted $25 billion, now he's asking for $5 billion. I think it's petty of the Democrats not to give him any money for a wall, but they also know that they can rile up the base by denying him any victory.
That's
and
the
part
issue.
Part of the border wall funding is hiring more U.S. Border Patrol agents. Because I literally just drove from Mexico 2 days ago, and once you get through the crossing, and we are in Lukesville, Arizona, once you get through that, on the way to Phoenix or to Tucson, because we went both ways, one way there, one way back, you have all these Border Patrol checkpoints along the highway. You have to slow down, and they look in your car, and they can detain you and check your car if possible. Do you think, is that part of it?
Yeah, so, I mean, one of the reasons that Trump said a wall and that resonated so much was that the American people don't trust our government to really follow through on border enforcement, and that a wall is sort of this tangible big thing. So I don't think Trump wants just some more manpower down there. I think he wants more physical barrier, or at least that's sort of what he ran on and promised, and so much of the electorate wants. So I don't think that that's necessarily the best way to add border enforcement, but it's certainly politically in demand because of the broad distrust for our government actually following through on its promise.
But the Democrats cannot give him the wall. It's so symbolic, and if he gets that, then he could cover the middle again, and he doesn't have to because he's already appeased the base. They can't do that.
That the word "the wall" is sort of not a well-defined thing. We know we're not getting a concrete structure, a wall of China, or anything going the 1,900 miles from San Diego to Brownsville. And so we're going to get something short of that, but more than nothing. And so when you're looking at these things, you're always looking, how do both sides get to declare victory? Something like a wall, some impressive thing that spans some important part of the desert probably. And then at the same time, the Democrats are saying, well, he promised a 30-foot-high wall that Mexico was going to be paid for and it was made out of concrete. That was going to be a monument to racism, and he didn't get it. So that's, I think, where you get a point that the Democrats can say, yeah, he got a fence of some steel slats. He didn't get a wall. And he can say, that's a wall.
Wanted to get your take on Mitt Romney's op-ed that he wrote yesterday, January 1st, New Year's Day at 8 p.m. What's the play here? Is he going to be running for president in 2020?
Well, that's certainly a possibility. I think he's going to hold open. I think just planting the flag that he was going to be someone who is not afraid of drawing Trump's ire. I mean, because that's the most obvious effect, right? You write this op-ed, it starts with a headline and a lead that clearly criticize him in a way that he's going to be that the president's going to be sensitive to. You're going to draw his ire. So it sort of immediately sets you up on opposite sides. I think that hopefully it means that he's going to push the Senate. I mean, every liberal reporter looks at it and says, oh, he's still going to go along with the president. He's not going to undo his tax cuts or block his conservative judges. So they want Romney to be a liberal if he's going to live up to this. But we say, no, there are things that Congress can do to sort of keep the president in line. And we hope that Romney will be a leader on that, which, take back his ability to just impose tariffs, some other oversight matters, make sure if he does nominate somebody unqualified, don't confirm them. I hope that Romney's trying to establish himself as sort of the leader who holds the president to conservative and constitutional principles and isn't just trying to set up his own political career. So I'm not answering what Romney's doing. I'm telling you what we hope Romney is doing.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Tim Carney. Thanks for coming back. Happy New Year.
Hey, thanks, guys. Happy New Year.
And Tim Carney, senior political columnist for the Washington Examiner. He joined us on our Turnkey.pro.